this is a picture from my recent workshop up at Northumberland, and I just wanted to share a couple of tips on editing lighthouses and vertical things when you've been out shooting landscapes. So what we can see here is I've used a 16-35 lens with a 10 stop on, so you get this nice smooth look, and I've got the polarizer on so you can see through the water as well. The thing is, with the 16-35, to get this foreground right, I've basically pointed the camera ever so slightly down, and this gives us a leaning tower there. So how do we correct that? There's a couple of ways. We can pretty much guess it by going down to the transform tab here and using the vertical. But one thing this doesn't really do is give you like a grid, so you can work out what is straight and what isn't straight. So I'll just put that back by pressing Alt and reset transform. So what you can do is use the guided tool. Usually use this for things like living rooms, houses, architecture and things like that. But what you do, because the sea is always level, is you can click on one end of the sea, drag, and then click on the other end of the sea. Hopefully that's fairly level. And now I'm just going to zoom in a bit. What I want to do, just use the hand tool to drag down. I'm going to click on the very top middle bit of the lighthouse and now draw a line down the middle of it. Now this is rack of the eye to some extent, but the fact we've got this yet white reflection in the water at the bottom helps. So if we put it in the middle of that reflection, something like that, and let go, it just pops up like that. So if we go back to fit here, you can see it's done both the sea level and we've got a vertical looking tower. Now, if you're not convinced you're quite right there, it might have gone a little bit too far with this. What we can do, we can just fine adjust it. So if you think you've gone a little bit too far, you can just grab hold of this thing and move it left and right to adjust it. And I think we're pretty much vertical there. So that's that done. Okay, let's continue with the edit now. So I think I'm just gonna, I've got the golden section crop on if you're wondering what. Click on these profile correction things because they are free, pretty powerful, doesn't take any effort. And then it's up to you how you edit this thing. I mean, you can always start with an auto just to see what the average of the shot is. Let's just overcut the side of the lighthouse there. I'm going to take a white balance from the white lighthouse. There we go. My 10 stop filter has got the lovely blue cast, so sometimes you do have to colour correct it a little. There we go. I'll just take those shadows down to give them a bit more gravity. Let's maybe have to play with the contrast. I want to get some depth in these shadows here, just to add a little bit of weight to the shot. You can try a bit of clarity. I'm going to add selective. I'm going to brush on some changes onto these rocks. So I'm not going to go mad with the clarity and everything. Now dehaze will affect the sky most on this. See what it does with the blues. Makes that cloud stand out. So I've just added 9, which isn't a lot. And then we'll just pop down. I'm not going to colour grade it. Let's add a little bit of sharpness. And I'm going to put the Alt key down and add some masking. So it's only going to sharpen the white bits, so it's the edges of things really. Okay, it's ISO 100, so I'm not going to do any noise reduction. We've done that, and I quite often like a bit of a vignette. Just draws the eye to the middle of it. So that's probably too much. Oopsie daisy. Let's go back. Yeah, as little as maybe 10. Just ever slightly, almost imperceptibly, draws your eye away from the edges. Right, so I've got in my brush palette a tool, a preset called Ego Brush, and the reason it's called Ego Brush is because it draws the eye to it. It's like it's a selfish brush. So when you brush on it, what it's doing, it's increasing the whites and the clarity of it, along with sharpness. So it's just pulling the eye to these things. So I'm going to add clarity and a bit of brightness to these rocks. It's just because they've got texture. We might as well. And you can experiment by playing with the other sliders whilst you're there. So we can maybe increase the darkness of the shadows by decreasing the shadow slider, or just opening the shadows up a little bit. It's up to you, really. So that's one. I'm going to click new. I'm going to do something in this water now. I'm not too sure what. So I'm just going to paint in the water. I've clicked that show mask button there, and I'm going to click auto mask because I just want to keep it in the water as much as possible so it doesn't start going onto the land or the sky. There we go. I think just go up to there. It's gone over a little bit onto the sky, hasn't it? So we can just press the Alt key and that reverses the brush to be an eraser. Right, so that's what we've got. Let's double click effect there, and that zeroes everything. So what do we want from this water? Well, let's see, we had a lot of clarity to it, maybe a bit of texture. This is just going on the water, remember. I reckon to increase the whites to make it a bit brighter. Yeah, that's quite cool, doesn't it? It's bringing out this lovely reflection we've got. Maybe just add a bit of contrast. You could desaturate it and make it black and white. No, don't do that. There's a bit of colour, sharpness. I think maybe it's gone a little bit too dark, so just bring those blacks up a bit. We don't want to get too dark in there. The shadows. Let's just grab the highlights. What are they doing? Yeah, I think a nice bright bit of sea. Contrast with the side here. Let's just take the highlights down. It's always good just to go plus and minus with the sliders just to see what happens. Actually, having added a lot and taken it away, I think I'm probably better off somewhere back in the middle. There we go. That's where it is. I'm going to just create a virtual copy of that. And now I'm going to just do a black and white version of it. So we've got both options. I think for daylight shots, black and white does lend itself quite well. So I'm hovering over all these different profiles here, like that. Some work better than others. I think the ones where the sky goes dark tend to leave these little halos around the edges, which isn't an attractive look. So I do tend to avoid those. That's not a bad one. It's kind of matted. You know, the dark areas aren't black, they're just very, very dark grey. Yeah, quite like that one. And we can fade the effect to a normal black and white or to the extreme. So I'm just going to maybe stop somewhere in the middle. How about there? Perhaps we could add a little bit of toning to this, and you could go cool, like a little cyan tone, that kind of area there. If you press the Alt key, the resets come up, and click on that. How about put it in the shadows instead? So you can go very, very blue, or just slightly blue, so it's almost unnoticeable. Yeah, that's quite cool. I like that. So you've got a nice cyan version of it. If you wanted to add a bit of contrast, you could use the curves. Just grab a lower portion and drag it down a little bit, not much, and then the upper portion and drag it up a little bit, like that. And there you go. So you've got yourself a black and white version and the colour version. So that's your black and white, and that's your colour. But the main thing there is just using a guided transform tool just to get the tower vertical and the sea horizontal.